Thousands of refugees and migrants crossed the English Channel to Great Britain on rubber dinghies during the corona pandemic. This poses domestic political problems for the British, and there is also a risk of a dispute with the EU. Artin Nezat's story ended on a beach. The sea washed the 1-year-old's body ashore. Police officers found him last week. Months earlier, his Iranian Kurdish parents had boarded an overcrowded boat with him and his 2 siblings. The boat sank, none of them survived the voyage. Anyone reading that on all the media before was probably thinking about the Mediterranean Sea, one of the many boat accidents on the way from Libya or Turkey to the countries of southern Europe. But this accident happened far from the Mediterranean Sea, in the northern part of Europe, more precisely in the English Channel on the way from France to England. The boy's body was washed as far as Norway. With a rubber dinghy across the English Channel, it is the refugee route in the corona crisis and post-Brexit period. More and more people are making their way from the refugee hotspot Calais in northern France to the south coast of England. Last year, around 8,400 people came to England across the English Channel, 10 times as many as in 2018. This year, by the end of May, there were already more than 3,000. Many of them come from Iran, Iraq, Albania, Eritrea or Vietnam. In the port city of Calais, irregular camps are constantly emerging. Only last week, one with several hundred migrants was evacuated. The reasons why they want to go to Great Britain are different. Many already have families or a network there, some are disappointed with life in France and other EU countries and are hoping for a new start on the other side of the English Channel. But the route is dangerous. The English Channel is one of the busiest in the world. The currents are strong and the water temperatures are low. Time and again people get into distress at sea. Help doesn't come in time for everyone. At least 6 people died last year, including the Nezat family. For the British government, the rising number of arrivals are a domestic problem in particular. It is also on a course of confrontation with the EU. A solution in which everyone wins would be easy to achieve, says migration expert Gerald Knaus. But first to the domestic political situation in Great Britain. With the Brexit came the promise to the population that the country would finally regain control of its borders without the EU. For the first time, we will decide ourselves who comes to our country and who does not, Interior Minister Priti Patel promised her supporters at the ruling Tories Party conference in October. The pictures of the arriving boats on the south coast, sometimes there were 400 people a day, put the government under massive pressure even then. Patel, who belongs to the right wing of the Tories, has repeatedly announced massive tightening of asylum law. The new plan for immigration, which Patel presented in March and which is to be discussed in Parliament this month, is not quite as extreme. Nevertheless, Patel wants to completely turn the asylum system inside out into one that human rights groups and the United Nations see as a violation of the Geneva Refugee Convention. Asylum seekers who enter illegally are said to have fewer rights in the future. Even if they are recognized as refugees, they should only receive a temporary residence permit, which would make it much more difficult to find work and housing. Access to social benefits and the right to family reunification should also be restricted. Patel also sent a message to the EU. France and other member states should please take back the people who made their way to Great Britain from them. As the British Guardian recently reported, the EU states were snubbed by this demand. Patel was therefore not even able to convince just one member country. It fails here because of the diplomatic and political craft, not only on the British but also on the European side, says Gerald Knaus, who advises the German government on questions of migration policy. He can understand the position of Great Britain. Every asylum seeker is safe in France. There is no reason for protection to enter Great Britain irregularly. However, Great Britain had to make an offer. The most obvious solution would be for France to agree to take people back quickly and for Great Britain in return to take over a certain number of those in need of protection from France. For example, this could be refugees who already have families in the UK. This requires legal channels, said Knaus. And by the way, I mentioned it a bit, but Gerald Knaus is a migration researcher and heads the think tank European Stability Initiative and, among other things, drafted the agreement between the EU and Turkey. But he also says failure to find a solution would create a situation in which the EU and the UK would blame each other and tensions would escalate. It could also have massive effects within Great Britain. Knaus draws a scenario in which, driven by the British tabloids, a disproportionate and hysterical discussion could arise. As a result, the UK government could take drastic and unjustified measures. What Knaus means by this has already become apparent in Great Britain over the past few months. Again and again, details of discussions and proposals from government circles were pierced through. For example, there was discussion about floating border fences in the sea, about the use of warships or wave machines to repel the boats. Placing migrants on oil rigs was also an issue. The opposition described these plans as inhuman. Although these ideas did not find their way into Priti Patel's planned reforms, the way will at least be paved for another. In the future, laws could be passed to accommodate asylum seekers in external areas, on islands, for example. As the London newspaper Times reported in March, the self-governing Isle of Man in the English Channel and Gibraltar, the overseas territory near Spain, were already being discussed. At the request of the newspaper, however, the areas announced that they had not been informed of any plans by the UK. The government of Gibraltar also rejected the plans. The area is not available for legal and geographical reasons. However, Knaus has great hope that these drastic measures in the interests of everyone will not be implemented. It is now crucial that France or Great Britain put a sensible proposal on the table as soon as possible, says Knaus. Not only would both states benefit from this, refugees no longer have to trust smugglers if they want to get to their families or for other reasons to Great Britain. Everyone would win, says Knaus, and is convinced that such resettlement programs would be an entry into a system in which more refugees in Europe could get legal protection. The Nizat family also had families in Great Britain. According to media reports, the father's brother already lives there. As Iranians, they would have had a good chance of asylum in Great Britain. 3 out of 4 Iranian asylum seekers are successful with their applications there. But I have to say I'm not as optimistic as Knaus is. With thousands of videos on Brexit now, I know exactly that even if there would be an agreement between France and Britain, it doesn't mean, especially knowing Priti Patel, that Britain would do what it's supposed to do as part of that agreement. They don't care so really what they signed. And the other point is, what is always forgotten by the British government when they are angry about the French, they are not part of the EU anymore. There is no legal basis for France that they have to take them back. As part of the EU, it would have been the case. We have the Dublin Agreement, where we have a lot of problems with that agreement because of Italy and Greece, and but that doesn't apply to Great Britain anymore. So they can't say, we have an agreement, you have to take them all back, because they landed first in France. That agreement was valid while they were a member of the EU. Then that logic would have worked. But they are not member of the EU anymore. That's what they wanted. And so they can't rely on membership rules. But it is a very serious problem with people dying, and so there has to be a way. But as I said, I'm not as optimistic as Knaus on that one, and I'm afraid we will hear discussions for quite some time. I'll see you in my next video. Auf Wiedersehen.